So this is going to be probably a crazy long video, and most people aren't going to be interested, especially if you don't have a fiberglass kayak. So what I'm doing is, it's an out in the garage day. I have some damage on my kayak right here, and actually when I was washing it the other day, I noticed right here on this seam line, it's hard to see, but right here it's actually cracking. So what I'm going to do is, and there's some other places on the bottom, but right now I'm in the middle of something. I'll show you what it is that I want to touch up. But first I have to get the seat pan out of here and this out of here, because to do these other repairs, let's look from the back side. See how we can see through the fiberglass? It's gotten thinned out considerably right here, and I see, oops, sorry, it's hard to hold this and look and keep my fingers out of the way. I see this discoloration right here, and I'm wondering if this delaminated a little bit here and water got in it. So what I'll probably end up doing is I'll take this seat pan out, we'll grind and expose some of this area from the back, and then I'll lay a piece in around here. So here's the other issue. So up here is where the Skeg control is, and this is, I don't know, probably one of the things I hate the most about this boat is the Skeg control. Instead of a lot of your sea kayaks, the Skeg is controlled by actual more of a wire, a solid wire that when you move it back in a slide, instead of having this round knob, and I'll show you the knob and the problem I'm having with it right now, instead of you turning a knob and it raising it up and down, you have a slide, and literally when you slide it back, it pushes on the wire and pushes the Skeg down. When you pull it forward, it pulls it up. Here it's got this little thin rope, braided rope, if you want to call it that. It's not really string, but and then it goes through this tube. So, and then the Skeg, which I have taped up right now because I'm trying to get the whole thing out because I have repairs around the box. Once I get it out, we'll take a look at that. This is spring loaded right here, and so you're winding it up against the spring, and it's very tight, and so it tends to jam. I wanted to modify it, but I just don't see a way to do it. But now my issue is I need to get this string out of here so that I can pull the Skeg completely out, and luckily this tube is big enough around, at least here. I hope it doesn't narrow down too much anywhere else. Where what I did was I took a piece of this yellow polyester line or nylon line, and I tried taping it first like you might do to pull wire in a wall or something, but this stuff is so slick I can't even get the tape to bite to it. So right now this is super glued together, and I'm letting it sit up. It's still a little bit tacky, but once that gets set up, I'm going to pull the original line out, reel that into its place, and leave a bunch of extra, because I kind of wondered if there's been dirt and stuff gathering in this little tube down at the other end. So I want to use this line here also as like maybe to clean it out. So this tube right here, I know you love walking around my garage, it's kind of a mess right now, connects to this. So on the outside of the boat you see this, and actually when I got it, the up and down were not bold white like that. It looked like this Skeg here. So if you didn't know, it was very hard to tell which way to even or what to do to get the Skeg up or down. So I colored them in. And for those that don't know, you just overall colored and wiped off the other before it dries. Okay, so this pops out of here. This is on the exterior of the hull. This is on the back side. You can see there's water in here. And I mean, there's no way to drain it out or clean it out. So when I took this all apart, I found this was broken, and this is where that white tube connects to, and then the string goes through that little hole. So water, because I spend a lot of time upside down in my boat, not by accident but on purpose, doing rolls and rescues. I've been doing a lot of rescue training, actually as an assistant trainer, not learning how to do it, but you're always learn. And so water's getting in this component here, so I got to get this replaced. And I mean, I wasn't even really paying, I would never thought this would have been quite, so let's put it in a very technical term, hokey. I wasn't paying attention, so now I have to live with it and make it work. Alright, just an idea. So if you're doing your own glass repair, you know, if you can, go to a fiberglass shop. Don't go to like a big box store or Western Marine. Yes, they will have some of what you need, not all of what you need, and you don't need all of this. The shop I go to is actually just quite a bit away from where I live, and I like to keep a stockpile that way. I use some of this stuff for other things, painting, who knows, whatever. Crafts for the house, you know, doing things with the daughter or whatever. But I just keep a stockpile of things, and things that I've used and had to use before. You know, these are just clamps to hold plastic up, and these are just mixing buckets. I get over there, I buy some there, you know, $6 worth or whatever, and I find a bunch of other things I can use. A nice little plastic bucket with measurements on it. Stir sticks. I mean, you can stir anything if you want. These were just actually ones I dragged out that I used to use, the popsicle ones with the kids. A little bit of extra cloth. This is actually, I take it back. This is actually 3-inch ribbon cloth right here. This is what I'll do the keel strip out of. Here's some from another job that I did, 2-inch. And then I like the disposable brushes with they work easy. Every once in a while I use one to touch a paint around the house. You're done, you throw it away. Some things like the hardener doesn't have a really good shelf life, so you're basically buying enough every time you go. Sanding aid, which is a wax solution. I'll talk about it a little bit more when we start mixing some glass up and looking at that. Most people don't know what this is, but this will take the place of this plastic or release type plastic later to help sanding. Some of the stuff that I just picked up a new roller. I've tried rolling before, but I want to try it again. A tub of resin, polyester general purpose, some black pigment, some off-white gel coat, and some red. So I was actually able to talk to .65, and I picked up some of these because I use them for a bunch of other things. And I mean, it's just, this shop is actually, I mean, this is their branded stuff, FGCI, and it's just, the price difference is just like going on Amazon or eBay and buying stuff, you know. These are like 20 cents. So I was able to get the color code for the boat from .65, but they use some color system that I could never find, like a crossover to something someone here might use. They're out of Sweden. So what I ended up doing was getting a very close red and a somewhat close white, but on the lighter side. So I have some black pigment, and I'll mix up a little bit, and we'll get it very close to the color, and then we'll put some hardener in it, let it harden and test it and see how it looks, and then we'll adjust it and keep playing with that a little bit. It's never going to be perfect, but we'll get it pretty close. And by going up and down, it's gonna, I can't remember if it dries a little bit lighter or darker, and both may be affected differently. So we'll take a look at that and we'll kind of compare it. And once I get a sample of it in color, then we'll mix a bigger batch and use that sample as the rough color. So for right now, and then I'm going to come over here on this side and also take that sticker out of there and just put some reinforcement in it. I see something going on right here. I just want to reinforce this. Then we'll cut this gap open here a little bit, grind this up. You can see it got pretty big back here, a nice little chip out. And we'll clean this up and see what we can do with it. Whether I have to grind this whole thing off and just lay in another piece, we'll see. I'll know once I start grinding. If I find it's really loose underneath, I'll dig it out until I get back to some stable material. You know, sometimes depending on what's going on, like over here, even though I can see some raw fiberglass in here, it's really right at the bottom of the gel coat. So, I mean, there's actually that's scrub pad from when I cleaned this. So basically we'll end up cutting most of this back out of here, like into here. I tend to go a little bit bigger, and then we'll grind this down and we'll get this cleaned up. If we need to glass in a little bit here, we'll add some, but I don't really see where I'm going to end up putting too much glass here. This is probably going to be all gel coat. We'll do a reinforcement patch on the back. We'll clean up around this, keep down low around where it mounts. We'll probably go from here to about here with a patch in the back. The pain in the butt's going to be getting the seat pan out. I know it's not going to come out easy. Alright, let me get some of this done and we'll put the camera back on it. Thanks. Okay, so I got that seat pan out and the back pan. And we can look up under here a little better now. And you can see, like right here, this discoloration here kind of, and I may actually grind down into here and see why that's like that. So I'll tell you, getting the back band out was, and I've done it before because when I first got the boat, and it was a pain in the ass. Sorry for cussing, but you know, it's life. It shouldn't be. I mean, that's an adjustment that you have to make initially at least once, and if you sell the boat to somebody else. And it took me a solid 10 minutes, 15 minutes to take 2 frickin' screws out because the top of the seat sits so close to this hole that I had to get a little 1/4-inch socket and wrench up in here. And on top of it, you have this pipe, and you don't see it. Let's see if we can get up here and look. Hang on. You have this one that's on both sides because this was also plumbed for a rudder. So, and you're trying to work around all that crap to get that bolt out, and it just shouldn't be. The seat pan, mediocre to get out. I really think the seat pan should be able to come out relatively simple. And here's why. I've had this happen on actually my daughter's old boat and on my current design Vision. And it's not happening, it's happening a little bit, but not as bad as those boats. So basically the seat pan's sitting on here and it has a couple little foam pads underneath. One right there and that little strip across the front to separate that from the boat. But what happens is there's no way to really clean under it. Dirt gets under it and then you're sitting on it, so it just starts getting rubbed into the fiberglass. And actually I've seen it wear right through the bottom of the boat. So it does give the boat some stiffness, but to me it should be something that's relatively easy to remove and clean under. All of them are like this, so it's not just this boat. The back band, though, that's an issue in my world that I just don't really care for. I think that's something that's... So I'm going to roll the boat over. Get enough of this string out. And I just had this tape on here so that while I was trying to undo the knot, the thing's held in with a knot on the other side. A knot in plastic. And what came right through. Oh yeah. And there looks like to be some kind of little gasket. But we got all the way through. Okay, so let's look at this. So this is basically spring loaded. And this is another rubbing piece of plastic right here. I mean, any bit of sand that gets in here, this kind of gets grindy. It's not super sealed. You can see this piece here. Get behind the camera, it's hard to see some of this stuff. I don't know if you can see, but there's a little black plastic piece that's actually just snapped in over here. That's hooked to a spring. And then it fits in here, and this is transferring the torsion load to this piece here. So it's making it twist. But if you look at it, you can see how this bolt is already twisting in this hole. Alright, if this was a recreation kayak, weekend warrior, I can understand some of this. But look, there's a knot here that ties this string to the... This is just, to me, not, you know, sea kayak gear. I'm sorry. I expect more. I expect to be out in places where I depend on this stuff to work every freaking time, and I maintain it so it does work every time. But this is just plastic gizmo. I mean, for those who don't know, the string on here is in case this does jam, somebody else could come up beside me and reach under and pull this down. Alright, so let me get this string cut off. We're going to look at the bottom of this boat real quick. Okay, we got it out of the way. So a few of the things I want to look at. This is just gunk down in there, but this is actually a big chip out. And when I look at things like this, this is due to a poor gel coat in the beginning. Nothing struck this and broke this. This fractured from without of this corner edge right here. Just like down in here, it's hard to see. But you see that crack line running around the whole piece there? We'll just clean this up and re-gel coat that. Same here. This is probably a small strike right here. We'll clean this out. There's a spot though. Way up there, see it right there? That's a gel coat. Just popped out. So this area here is just really hard to work in. It's going to be hard for me to work in. Clean some of this up. And also, what I'll end up doing is I'll end up cutting around this. Put some tape. I'll make it uniformed around this, like a little bigger than this whole opening here, all the way back to here. And then I'll cut my fiberglass to go around this area here. So that way I'm not overloading this, because the gel coat for the keel strip will be relatively thick. And then it'll run right off the back here, and I'll just terminate it up here. Oops, terminate it up here somewhere. And so I'll go over the bottom. The center I'm not really worried about, because that's going to all be fresh gel coat and fiberglass. So you're going to have fiberglass first, and then I'll gel coat on top of the fiberglass. But what I'll do is when I'm working on the white, I'll go around and I'll pick up some of these scratches, the heavier ones. Here's the thing. Basically what you're going to end up doing is you clean out the scratch. Like here's a real heavy one that goes, but you won't be able to see it. Let me hear in a second. Let's see if this helps. It makes it so hard for me to even tell with the camera what I'm even seeing it. But there is right here a relatively deep scratch. I mean, so basically we're going to sand it out a little bit, get it rough, get the surface around it rough, clean it up. A lot of that's going to be under the keel strip. We're just going to take some white, dab it into this, and it'll look like crap. And then we'll come back and we'll knock it down and sand it off. I don't know, I may take this opportunity and take some of the stickers off the boat too. But see, like this stuff up here in the front, this will go away. This will all be underneath my keel strip. And you can see right here where the gel coat's actually run through a little bit. Okay, so I kind of got ahead of myself and wasn't even thinking. Everybody's going to do this their own way, but one thing I've found is that what I'm going to do is, okay, I set a tape line here. This is picking up my original seam line right here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run another piece of tape right above it. And I want to try to keep it as close as possible. I mean, there is no perfect, but as close as possible without overlapping it. And if you never really played with tape or taped off something like for paint or whatever, something to think about is like on this where it's a curved surface, if you just set this very bottom edge, just get a little bit of pressure on it and keep your tape taut on the roll. And just keep working that bottom edge. Don't tape the whole thing, and it'll let this tape roll around the curve a little bit. We can just keep working it down to where we want it, and then we'll get it. We're using that other edge of the tape as our line. We're not overlapping. A little shy of it, if you have a little gap, is not going to matter. If you overlap, that makes it a pain in the butt, and when we go to pull that first piece off, it will tend to rip the second one. So we don't want that. What we're doing here, so once you get this bottom edge nice, rack it down, then come back and work up toward the top. And you can see how that's just kind of forming right around the bend. So why we did this? We're going to need some guideline here to set this back up. And if we go and we grind all this off, we're kind of guessing if they had it sloped a little bit or if it wasn't perfectly straight. We don't really know where it is. So now that we have this, all we have to do is pull this first piece off. Now we can do our work, clean this up, get this all prepped, get ready for glass. If we want, we can lay in, because I got a little rough up here, lay in a little bit of white. We'll see how our white comes out, and then we'll put this tape strip back and we'll use that mark. And actually what I'll probably do is just go a little bit above it maybe and just overlap this piece this time, just to give me a little gap, so that now I'll have my tape line for my new joint. And one thing what we want to do is when we set this gel coat in here, we want to pull this tape. Alright, so I don't know where my battery died, right at the end of my statement there. So what I was saying is, we're going to pull this tape off once we set this re-glassed it or re-gel coat this area. If we leave the tape on and let the gel coat harden up, it's going to give us a real hard edge. Actually, we might have to sand it off a little bit. If we do it while it's still fluid before it hardens, it'll tend to want to just flow off on the edge, and it'll give us a little bit nicer finish. Alright, so as you can see, I'm just taking as little of that. I'm trying not to burn through the white. Some of it's kind of really thin, and it varies. You know, that is the seam line where the upper hull and lower hull are actually fiberglass together. And then the red is kind of like a water line, but really it covers the joint. And it varies in thickness. And I'm not sure, I haven't seen an indication of a crack along this line. Why that had all really cracked right there. But I'm going to fix it while I'm in here right now and be done with it. Alright. Okay, so I'm not going to do this line. It'll be loud and noisy, and I have a respirator on right now. If you are working with sanding fiberglass, you definitely want to wear a respirator. I just wanted to give just a quick idea of what I'm trying to do and how I'm doing it. And of course, so I don't know how much you can hear, but I had an angle grinder that stopped working just today, so now I'm having to use this one. Trying to do this. Okay, so if you remember, this was a side that really didn't have any damage looking from the outside other than a big long crack on this seam right here. So I opened it up, ground this down, and I'm going to end up grinding this a little bit further. Alright, so here's the problem, and I can guarantee this is the problem. This joint here was just terrible right here. See, this is how it should look, nice and tight. There should be no gapping here. If we look over here, this whole area here was filled with, hang on, let me start this over. Okay, let's see. I don't know if it was my glasses that were cloudy or if it was actually the camera lens. But if we get right down in here, we can see there's a gap, and I can actually get my nail behind it right here. And this whole thing is flexing. This isn't even glued to the reinforcement strip that's on the inside. Let's see. It's easier to see way down there. See how that's like built up? Well, there's a strip right here. That's how wide it is. That they actually, the reason we're seeing the light is because all the gel coat's off right there. But, you know, it's like a 2-inch strip. That's how wide it is, what they've glued the two holes together with. And it's flexing there because the outside is not sealed. It's not glued or epoxy to the inside. So when this flexes a little bit, this is actually doing this. And we come down here and you can see they did the exact same thing. And the gel coat is slightly more viscous than the epoxy resin, and so it tends not to flow out. If you look here, you can see it really didn't flow out behind this, and I'm sure once I cut this out, I'll find there's a big lip behind that. But the same thing here, it sat right here, right at this crack. This piece just popped out. It filled this section right here. And I mean, I can get my fingernail back behind all this back up to here. So there's a big void here. So what I'm going to try to do is probably dig some of this out, cut this open just a little bit more. So this is level. And then just flow a little bit of epoxy resin in here, just more as a filler. Same here. Clean this whole gap out. And then grind the whole back inside the cockpit and cut some cloth a little bit wider than that strip, and probably start somewhere up there, you know, just by the foot peg. Of course, it's going to be a total nightmare going behind this mount and all the way back to that the wall. There's a name for it. Of course, I can't think of it right now, but it'll come to me. The bulkhead, because that's stiffening that whole area up. So at that point, I didn't see any cracking. That had already stiffened some of that up, but I want to get some of that out. And as you can see that red? That's where the joint's not tight, even up there. But I'm not gonna, you know, I could tear the whole boat apart and re-gel coat the whole darn thing. It just don't happen that way. So we're going to fix what we have going on. If we have to come back later and dig in deeper and go more that way, we'll do it. But I mean, it is a kayak. I'm brutal. I'll give you that. But I expect slightly better workmanship. Sorry. And 10 to 1 says this isn't even made in Sweden. Nothing's made where it says anymore, or where the company is. It all gets offshore to some other company that just slaps this shit together because they're not having to put their life in this boat. Alright, we'll continue. Okay, so I've did some grinding and prepping, and we end up with this. A nice size hole on the frickin' side of the boat. Okay, so this is one primary reason that there's a limit to what most people can do fiberglass work, and just the knowledge and the equipment sitting around to actually do something like this. So what happened here was, this was that small area well, if you remember correctly, when we were looking at the backside, there was a area that looked like it was hollow. Well, sure enough, it was. Whether that happened when the two boats hit and it delaminated, which I would truly not expect, or if it was just a bad layup, which I could almost guarantee you that's what it's caused by, because I see the exact same thing on the other side. So where the tape was laid and the two hull halves were put together, they weren't completely laid up tight, and so there was a gap there. So I could have tried to get some epoxy to roll down in there, or actually fiberglass resin, it's polyester, roll down in there and try to fill it, but that's a hit or miss, and the surface areas aren't prepped. All this is kind of hard to tell, but has been sanded down to take the glaze off of it and bring it back, give it with 80 grit, something to give some bite to it. And that's all been prepped. So this side over here, it got pretty extreme too, because of the exact same thing at this very top edge, and this is why it cracked all the way across. And even up here, I've got a little hollow spot, went right through. There was no bond between this deck and that piece of tape behind it, the 2-inch wide piece of fiberglass. And so that flexed right there, and that's why this whole color band cracked. So I cut all the loose off. Here it's not going to be quite as difficult of a repair. I'll tape this area down here so no gel can come through it when I'm gonna put a 2-inch piece of tape across this whole seam again, reinforce that, and then a wider strip across the whole area. And then I'll let that set up, I'll turn around, I'll flip it on edge, and then we'll do up this whole strip right here with some epoxy, with some resin, and fill that all back in. And then we'll do some white gel coat, and then we'll do the red. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. And so this is all I've been working on, and it's been several hours of grinding, because needless to say, trying to grind up in this little area up in here is a pain in the butt. Grinding and hand sanding. So I'm going to put it, I'll show you the layup I'm going to do just before I epoxy it in, and I'll probably run the camera there and hack it up and let you see about what's going on. This is way past a gel coat repair. This is far past it, and this is somewhat ridiculous. But we'll fix it, and yeah, you'll be able to know it's there, but it'll be structurally sound and it won't leak water, and it actually may be slightly stronger than it was right now, or before it was even damaged. Alright, so I don't know how I'm going to show this, if it's even going to work, but we'll try. So what I'm going to do is, let's get those couple other layers in. It's hard to kind of see, because of course I need to get in here too, but I put just a small little layer just to build that up a little on the back side, well, it'll actually be the outside of the boat. So then I have this piece here, just a little 2-inch it's already woven that way, and I want to make sure that it's centered pretty much in this seam, so that's going to reinforce that whole thing right there. And I cut it up and around where the Skeg control goes, and we're just going to get that to lay in there. And I think what I'm going to do is glue that in, and then lay this other piece in right on top of it. I don't like laying it on the wet, but that way I'm sure I get decent adhesion of that piece. So I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to do a 1%. That should give me about 15 minutes probably, maybe a little bit more of work time. Alright, I'll be back once I got some mixed up. Alright, let's see what happens here. So we're just going to pour a little bit of this in. We're going to pour it like straight in right on top of it. We're just going to let it soak down through. That'll start holding it in place. And I already feel like I don't have enough mixed. Maybe. I want to really soak it down. We'll just keep pulling it right back to the back. We'll make sure there's no air bubbles. And we'll make sure our piece is where we want it. Okay. So that really gets us back to where we were. So what I'm going to do is fold this somewhat in half, just slowly sliding in here. And I know for the most part it lines up with the bottom of this chime marked down here. I'll just lay this in. And then what's nice, what you want to always remember is the more disposable everything that you're working with, the better. And I'm sorry if the audio is bad and it's hard to see what I'm doing. And I can't really move the camera. I would, because I can't have it get in my way. But we'll get this in here. So we want to make sure what we're doing is better than what we're repairing, always. Make sure everything's laying flat. We roughed it up the best of our ability. That's always going to be somewhat questionable. Keep spreading the resin. Don't let it puddle. Make sure you get the ends of your cloth really good. If you go past, that's fine. This isn't as much, I don't know how to describe it. It's not like, I would say, well, even glue. Most people just glob glue on. Don't realize it. It's the thinner the glue for the most part, most glues, the better the holding power. The thicker it is, usually you lose power. We want to make sure we don't see any voids. And I actually had more than I needed. What I may do is I had the time, I think. I may do that little piece on the outside above while the boat's sitting this way. Out of here. There's one spot down here just didn't look like it got a good bite. Not sure why. Alright, so let's see if we can see what we did. I'm all sweaty on my hands now. So basically you can see we went in there. That whole section's been redone. Boat like this just to make our cleanup easier. We're going to throw a piece of tape here. Let it roll up like that. I mean, there's just, some people would say you should put some fiber in here, but I'm just don't see how. I need to look the way this way just a little more. I need to hurry up because this is definitely jelly. That's really all I wanted to do anyhow. Alright. But I do want to try to get on here. Nope. There's a couple of these pieces of plastic. Okay, so if that dries with air on it, it will tend to be tacky and a pain in the butt to sand when we go to put the next coat on there. So what we're going to do is lay this in there, try to keep some of the air off the top. This will help it not be tacky when we go to sand it in a little bit. Or what we could have done is put a wax in it. And literally you're putting wax in here. What happens is the wax liquefies inside of there, and as it sets up, it pushes the wax to the top, and the wax itself becomes the seal, just like this plastic does. And then that way, in a few minutes, once in 20 minutes, when everything's hardened up a bit, we can sand it. I'm not worried about in there because I'm not going to sand that. So that can sit for a few days and the tackiness will go away, and that'll be fine. So we have 2 layers. We've reinforced the 2-inch tape right at the joint. We added a little bit there in the actual hole to fill it a little bit, and then we put a whole nother larger piece across the whole area to reinforce the whole section. Oh, I'm pointing and I'm not even showing. So we should get some. We should be pretty decent. I don't expect to have a problem with it again, but you know, I'm not a fiberglass god. Just a guy who has a bunch of fiberglass and likes playing with it. All right, so we'll let this harden up, then we'll lay up. We'll let this dry up. We'll pull all that off. We'll lay up the back side of this one because this is a long run up here too. It's hard to do when I got this thing on a tripod. And we'll let, and then we'll move forward. All right.
With a wrap, immediately which this car's going to get, I'm pretty sure. It has a carbon fiber center hood extractor, which gives it this large bulge, which also helps to accommodate the space and give more breathing room for the supercharger that's sitting under there like an oven. One of the biggest things about the 1LE package or the track pack is its aero setup. Now this is something you don't think about during street driving because you're not typically...
What I try not to do is pull it too hard at the very edge because I don't want to, I more or less dab it to try to keep the fiber from the glass. And the cloth actually just pulling out at the edge, and you get these big snaggy runs. You just go crazy trying to get them to stick down so they're not like just making a mess of everything you just did. Not that they'll interfere with it or cause a problem. Sometimes it just gets to the point of you want your work to look like you did it. You actually knew what you were doing when you did it.
We get on the inside of the Camaro.
The guy, I don't know if you can hear it in the background, he's doing a review of like 2018 Camaro LE. He's talking about the trunk space. I'm sorry, but if I'm buying a freaking Camaro, it certainly isn't because I'm worried about the trunk space, I'll be honest with you. Especially a freaking 600 horsepower supercharged race car at a dealership.
There's matte chrome. That is it. And this is such a nice change. Chevy is not
all I'm looking at is 600 horsepower plus. Actually, I think it's like 650.
Chevy interiors from a sports car perspective ever made.
All right.
Now I'm going to say this.
So that gets us partially to where we need to be.
I don't think this is going to age well.
Okay, so we're going to let these areas here set up overnight. they're almost ready to go anyhow. The one side, for whatever reason, is taking a little bit longer, so I rolled the boat over and I started playing with some of this. Okay, this is back in the Skeg area. So there was that little crack that was running all the way around this. Alright, so I started die grinding it out because really it's hard to get a sander down here, and it started just popping out. Let me blow some of that out of there, and hang on a second. What it seems like, let's get some air. I mean, it wasn't even really bonded down here. The whole, it just flaked out of there right around as soon as I started getting in there. Pieces started popping out. Well, once again, the gel coat should be affixed to that in a way that you have to grind it off. It shouldn't pop out in chunks. Alright, so I ground this out right here, and I mean, this is, once again, I didn't even grind this. Here's the, and it's pretty consistent. So basically you have the fiberglass back here, and you can kind of see that the fiberglass comes up into the corner, and then the gel coat covers it. Well, what happened is gel coat didn't come up in the corner, and or the fiberglass didn't make a corner, and only the gel coat did, so it just broke right off. Because it's not structural like the fiberglass. Same exact same thing here. Here's the fiberglass. This isn't chipped out, and that's where it was. Now my issue is, got it, second time I dropped that on the ground. Okay, so I don't know if we'll be able to see this. Hang on, let me go get a light. You know, and these are tricky parts to manufacture when you're building a boat, because it's very small. Yeah, maybe this will get us where we want to be. Alright, let's see if we can come over here. Let's see. Okay, let's see. I'm trying not to get a shadow. Okay, so remember there was that little chip out right here. Well, when I started trying to get the gel coat out of the way so I could fix it, look. It goes way down there. And basically, I mean, the gel coat isn't even touching the fiberglass. The screwdriver's going right behind the gel coat. Look, I don't know how I'm going to get down here to fix this, but we will. Look how far down. And I'm still not really to it. Look, I'm still just touching it, and it's chunking out. So what that means is if a little stone got up in here and I closed that skeg, it's hard to see, I would not be able to, it would just chip off more. So now I'm going to have to find something to get up in there, get down there and get it roughed up and somehow tip this boat on edge. Can we see that? I know this is crazy trying to show you this. Well, tip the boat on edge and get down in there and try to freaking get some gel coat back down in there. And it's just like peeling paint. Just kind of annoying. Alright, so it's day 2. Not that I've worked on this continuously, but fairly. So this side here, I just filled a couple little divots. It's sanded down. I'll hit it one more time to level it off, and we'll throw some white on there and start building that back up. Here's my problem, and I knew this was going to happen. I don't know if this will show up in the video. So you see the 2 red drops on top. Those are the front one. I tinted down a little bit. The one in the back is basically the normal color of which I'm going to go with. The white, the holes really got more yellow in it, I would say. It's so hard to tell when you have no reference and you're trying to do this from memory at a store sometimes. And to drag the whole boat down there when it's not easy to get to in the first place because of work and everything else. What I'm probably going to end up doing is just going with this white. Yeah, it's going to show, but I really don't care that much. And maybe one day what I'll do is I'll take down there, I'll find a way of getting the tint right on it, and then I'll just sand up and do a little touch up, take it down a little bit, and not go through all of this, but just knock it down, give it a bite edge on there, and lay some gel coat back on it. So we got this stuff all prepped up over here. We'll worry about that. And we have the other side fairly prepped. I've been working on this side. That side just needs a lot of sanding. Trying to get this ready and get some gel coat just to see something done. Yeah, not fun stuff, but part of life at times. Alright, what I was going to say is, unlike the current design, I will have to give them big kudos that I can contact them and they'll ship me gel coat matching for that boat. I think they call that smoke white, but not .65. Okay, so threw some gel coat on here. Now, yeah, it does look very bumpy because I'm trying to get some lift and fill to it, but we're going to come back and sand that down and knock it down flat. Mostly we're going to blend it in on this edge here back to the boat and leave that a little high in the middle, see if you can tell, but that band is actually a little raised, and I'd rather not have to work it all out with the red. So what we'll do is we'll get this kind of trimmed in and we'll get it flattened out down on the edge here with the boat. Get that beveled in. We may need one more coat, and then we'll run another tape bead. This is waxed, so this will, once this sets up, it'll be ready to sand. We'll knock it down, we'll get it where we want it to be. If I like it where it is, I'll just run my tape bead here and we'll start building up red. We're gonna have to play with the red to get this little bit of thickness back to it. And so while I was at it, and the gel coat's a little bit tacky, you know, it'll stay in place. I had a couple spots on the back, deeper scratches cut out already and prepped and screwed those up. And I was doing a little bit of fill in here, get that covered up. This looks like a mess, but basically once I pull that off and sand it down, that'll all blend back in. Yep, what a pain in the butt, but we move on. Alright, so I got the white down there. Some places didn't cover quite as well as I was hoping. So what I did was I made my band a little bigger in a couple places so that the red would get out there. Because what's happening is I'm never gonna be able to get the thickness the same as the original. And as I get back to the end without getting a really sharp peak, I would have a bump up. Okay, so I'm gluing this on here. I was hoping it would settle down a little bit, but it's really thick. But I actually doubled up the tape, put 3 layers of tape to give me a little bit more edge right there. So that when I pull this off, with any luck, it'll have it built up some. And I don't want to get red everywhere, but I definitely want to get it on here. And since I'm trying to get done somewhat today, which is definitely not happening, I'm running this stuff pretty hot. That's half of my problem. I've already lost it. I made it too hot. That's as much as I need to get down. So what I'll end up doing is sanding that down, getting one more coat on there. Dang it. Would've worked. What happened was I freaking screwed around taping that up more, and I let this go cook on me. At least I got one coat down. What's kind of sucks is I put wax in it because I was hoping to be able to sand it right off. And if I didn't put wax in it, I could lay another, see how that's gelled up on there. What happens if you don't get this tape off right away? I don't know if you could see that down there. It actually pulled on it. That's going to take a little bit of work, but it's getting there. And this one here, but just to give you a quick idea, we're working on some of this, so this is as good as I'm going to get that. And there's a little line, it's hard to see right here. And I started filling in the bottom back here. Clean this up a little bit. Now this is going to get sanded down finer yet, so I leave it a little bit high. A couple of the scratches in the middle here, it's hard to see because the colors are so close, but it kind of looks raggedy. But as I start bringing, don't forget I'm going to do the keel strip down here, so I'm going to have a major amount of sanding. But as I bring this down in finer and finer, the shine will come back. And then when I'm all did and done, I might actually polish it for the first time. Try peeling these friggin' stickers off. Boom, clean it up. Alright, so I got this laid over. I'm going to let this set up overnight. We'll sand it down. It looks like crap, but it's more than functionable. I'll sand it down. It won't be quite as rough. We'll smooth it up, polish it out, clean up all this off here. So that's one side. I come back over here and fix this mess. Luckily it's a lot shorter, so maybe it won't be quite as pain of an ass as the other side was. Alright, so sanded this down a little bit, got this prep going pretty quick. See if we can see this. I just got done wet sanding this side down. So I can come in there and hit that just a little bit more. See some deeper scratches in it, but it's kind of hard to tell. Coming along again now. Put some of the gloss back on the bottom. I did a 1200 wet sand final, and then I'll polish it out from there. It's kind of hard to see, but I mean, there's a few imperfections in this. Once again, this is it's a work boat. It's not like something I put on a shelf. I beat on it anyhow, but overall, even the color, I mean, if you're looking for it, you can see the color difference, but from a distance, it almost is not noticeable. Okay, so this goes kind of to a review of the boat. And once again, handling, performance, the boat works fine. I have no problems with it. But, you know, I did the repair over here, and while doing the repair, I think it was right over here. I'm already right over here. I'm showing you the floor. Right over here, I'm already seeing another crack starting to form. And this is definitely a bonding issue between upper and lower. Okay, so it's all done, put back together. I took a lot of footage, but I'm sure I'm going to cut it up and hack it up, so some of it the verbiage may not seem fluid or something like that. I don't know how it's going to show up yet. So when you get to this part, if you do, you know why. You can see that side. I mean, from a distance, if you get right up, yeah, you can see it was repaired there. But I mean, from here, and like I said before, it's solid, it's structurally sound. It's just an appearance thing, and it's a boat. It's not like, I don't know, a fine piece of art. And this side was a little bit bigger, slightly more noticeable. I don't know if we'll be able to see it. You know, it's not perfectly straight, but to make it perfectly straight, I'd had to dig down the gel coat here in white, do white, and then come back on the red. And that was just crazy. All right, so a couple pointers, things that I said don't do, I wouldn't do, even though I did them. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you watched the video, thanks, appreciate it, and have a great day.